You're sitting in your chair assembling a Mercedes Lego. The instructions are somewhere. Half the pieces are already lost in the carpet, but you're still convinced you'll build a championship car. And suddenly, a thought pops into your head. How did Lewis Hamilton become a Formula One legend and turn me into a Mercedes fan? Sit down, I'll tell you. Lewis Hamilton was born on January 7th, 1985, into an ordinary family in Stevenage, England. Not in Monaco, not surrounded by cars and champagne, but in a place where motorsport feels distant, almost mythical. His parents separated when he was 2, and Lewis stayed with his mother, Carmen Larbalestier. But his father, Anthony Hamilton, never abandoned his son. He was the one without whom this story would never exist. At just 6 years old, Lewis showed a fascination with motorsport. His first track was the floor of his bedroom. His first race car was a radio-controlled vehicle. And the remarkable thing is that he wasn't just playing, he was already winning competitions. Even then, adults would watch him and think, does this kid actually know what he's doing? Then came the next step. His father noticed Lewis's passion and bought him a go-kart. Anthony wasn't wealthy. He couldn't simply open his wallet and hand his son a ticket to Formula One. All he could do was work. And he worked as if he had a contract with destiny. Sometimes he juggled 4 jobs at once. He covered training costs, travel expenses, tires, and carts. And after long shifts, late into the night, he would repair and upgrade his son's kart in the garage. Because motorsport isn't a children's hobby, it's a financial meat grinder. Lewis began competing on British karting circuits, a small boy in a helmet that sometimes looked heavier than he was. There were defeats. Days when the kart broke down. When rivals arrived with equipment worth twice as much. When it seemed like this sport simply wasn't built for families like theirs. But that's exactly where character is forged. He understood that his father had sacrificed everything for this, and so Lewis learned not to quit, not to make excuses. He learned to fight. Motorsport was a closed world back then. Lewis was a black kid in a sport where almost everyone around him looked different. He faced prejudice, isolation, the awareness that being good wasn't enough. He needed to be exceptional just to be taken seriously. He won races, he claimed championships, he became the star of British karting. But the defining moment came when he was around 10 years old. At the awards ceremony following the British Karting Championship, the room was packed with influential people, team principals, industry figures. Among them was Ron Dennis, the head of McLaren. Lewis approached him for an autograph, a small boy who could have simply smiled and walked away, but instead he said, "Hi, my name is Lewis Hamilton. One day I will race for McLaren." It sounded almost like a joke, but that was Lewis. He didn't ask, he declared. Ron Dennis remembered him, and a few years later McLaren brought him into their junior program. Imagine, still a child, and one of the most powerful teams in the world already sees you as the future. Lewis climbed the junior ladder at remarkable speed. He won Formula Renault UK, dominated European Formula 3, then claimed the GP2 championship, the final step before Formula 1. It was clear this wasn't just a talented driver, this was a future superstar. In 2007, he entered Formula 1 with McLaren, and immediately did the unthinkable, a rookie challenging for the World Championship from race 1, not adapting, not learning slowly. From the very first Grand Prix, he drove like he already owned the place. The following year, he became world champion in one of the most cinematic finales in sporting history, in Brazil. Lewis became the first black world champion in Formula One history. Contracts were massive, salaries soared. McLaren made him the face of the team. His earliest major earnings were measured in millions, but with fame comes pressure. You're no longer just a driver, you become a symbol, a representation of something much larger than yourself. Then came a difficult stretch. McLaren was no longer producing the fastest car. There were victories, but the championships went to others. Lewis wrestled with internal doubt. Should he stay in his comfort zone or take a risk? In 2013, he signed with Mercedes, a genuine gamble. Mercedes wasn't a powerhouse then. Many said he was throwing his chances away, but Lewis saw what was coming, and what was coming arrived. The hybrid era began, Mercedes became a dominant force, and Hamilton became the defining symbol of that era. Title after title, record after record, 7 world championships, standing alongside Schumacher, the all-time leader in victories and pole positions. His name became a set of statistics that reads like something fictional. But the greatest rivalry at Mercedes wasn't Red Bull or Ferrari at first. It was the man in the next garage, Nico Rosberg. They had known each other since childhood, since karting. Back then it was a friendship, 2 kids sharing the same dream. But when Mercedes began to dominate, the friendship dissolved into something far more fierce. Lewis was pure speed and instinct. Rosberg was cold discipline and calculation. In 2016, Rosberg achieved the impossible. He won the championship, defeating Hamilton in the most grueling internal battle of the era. Then he retired immediately because that fight had cost him absolutely everything. He beat Lewis once and walked away. But Hamilton stayed and kept making history through 2020. Then came 2021, a battle with Max Verstappen, one of the most gripping and controversial seasons ever recorded. The finale in Abu Dhabi still ignites fierce arguments to this day. Lewis lost the title on the very last lap. After that, Mercedes no longer dominated. Years of struggle followed. Lewis stayed, kept driving, kept searching for another shot because he knew there was simply no other way. And then another twist. He signed with Ferrari for 2025. Lewis Hamilton in red, one of the most seismic transfers in the history of the sport. Now we look ahead to 2026. New regulations, a new era, a new chapter for Lewis. Hamilton's story isn't just about being fortunate enough to have a fast car. It's the story of a boy with a remote-controlled toy, a go-kart, and unwavering belief, and a father who worked himself to the bone so his son could one day prove to the world that he truly belonged here. Now back to you, and your Mercedes Lego on the couch. If this story resonated, leave your thoughts on Lewis and his career in the comments. This was Mr. Fast Life. Goodbye.